3 years ago, Daniel Eze left Adaize with a WhatsApp message. No call, no explanation, just 7 words on a screen. I need someone on my level now. She read it twice, set the phone face down on the counter, looked at the bolts of Aso-oke fabric stacked around her in the shop she had built with her own hands, in a city that had never once made anything easy for her. Then she allowed herself exactly 20 minutes. She cried quietly, with her back against the fabric shelf, on the floor of a shop she paid for with money she had earned before Daniel even knew her name. She had been paying half his rent. She had bought him the shoes he wore to his first big meeting. She had stayed up 3 nights helping him rehearse a presentation that got him promoted. And he had sent 7 words. 20 minutes. Then she stood up, washed her face at the small sink in the back room, and went back to work. She did not call him. She did not reply. She simply continued. That was Adaize Okonkwo, 29 years old, born in Lagos, raised in Port Harcourt, now selling fabric at the Wuse market in Abuja, because she had decided 3 years before Daniel that this city was where her future lived. She was not the kind of woman who got described as beautiful first. She was the kind of woman people remembered after they left the room and could not explain exactly why. She carried herself like someone who had already survived the worst thing and was no longer afraid of what came next. The invitation to Alhaji Suleiman's daughter's wedding came through a contact, a big Abuja event, the kind where the food never runs out and the music starts before noon, and the hall is full of people performing wealth for one another. Adaize was not a guest. She was there as a vendor. Her fabrics had been selected for the bridal train's attire, which was an honor she had worked 3 years to earn, and which paid better than anything she had done all month. She arrived early, set up her display in the vendor tent, arranged bolts of deep burgundy and gold, with the focus of a woman who understands that good presentation is not vanity, it is respect for the work. She did not see him immediately. She heard the laughter first. A particular kind of laughter. The kind that is not really about anything funny. She looked up. Daniel was standing 20 meters away in an agbada that cost more than her monthly rent. He was taller than she remembered, or maybe it was just the way money made men carry themselves differently. Beside him was a woman in a green lace ensemble, introduced loudly to the people around them as my fiancée, Chidma. Her father owns Meridian Properties. Chidma was beautiful in the obvious way, the kind of beautiful that required resources to maintain. Daniel saw Adaize. She watched it happen, the recognition, the quick calculation behind his eyes, and then, the thing she would not forget, he smiled. A specific smile. Not warm, not apologetic, not even embarrassed. It was the smile of a man looking at something he had discarded, and was pleased to confirm that he had been right to discard it. He laughed, not at a joke, at her, at the vendor table, at the fabric in her hands, at the distance between where he was standing and where she was standing. Chidinma looked in her direction without really seeing her, and then looked away. Adaize felt the heat rise in her chest and then, very deliberately, she let it settle. She smiled back, the kind of smile that gave nothing away. Then she turned back to her table, straightened a bolt of fabric that was already straight, and continued working. Inside, something went very quiet. The wedding hall lost power at 6:30. It was a generator issue, which meant 3 minutes of complete darkness, and the particular chaos of 400 people trying to move in the same direction at once. Adaize was already near the side exit, moving equipment trolley, navigating by memory and the glow of phone screens. She did not see the man until she walked into him. Full speed, chest first. It was like walking into a wall that had been placed there without warning. The wall caught her. One hand on her arm, the other at her shoulder, steady and immediate, stopping her from falling backward into the trolley. The lights came back on in the same second, the generator kicking in with a deep mechanical groan, and Adaize found herself looking up at a face that was difficult to read. Not handsome in a soft way, handsome in the way that comes from structure, from a jaw set like a decision, from eyes that did not look at her with the usual flicker of assessment that men's eyes performed when they looked at women they found interesting. He looked at her, the way someone looks at a problem they are genuinely curious about. "Are you hurt?" His voice was low, not performed low, The way some men made their voices low to seem important. Just naturally that way, like a radio tuned below the noise. "I'm fine," Adiaze said. She meant, "I don't need help. I have never needed help. Please let go of my arm." He heard all of it. She could tell because his mouth moved slightly at one corner, not quite a smile, and he released her arm and stepped to the side to let her pass. But she felt him watching. For the rest of the evening, whenever she glanced toward the main hall from the vendor tent, he was somewhere nearby, not staring, not hovering, just present, like a man who had made a quiet note about something and was in no hurry to act on it. She told herself it meant nothing. She did not quite believe herself. His name, she learned the next morning, was Emmanuel Okafor. She learned this because his assistant appeared at her market stall at 9:30 a.m. with a brown envelope and very good posture. Inside the envelope was a contract. Okafor's younger sister was getting married in 6 weeks. Traditional ceremony, full Igbo style, expected attendance of 300 people. He needed fabric sourcing, coordination, creative direction, vendor management, the works. The fee listed at the bottom of the contract made Adiaze read the number 3 times. She called the number on the contact card. He answered on the second ring. "Why me?" she asked. No greeting, no pretense. A pause. Then, "Because you were the only person in that hall doing actual work, and because you smiled at a man who disrespected you in public, and then went straight back to your table." She was quiet. "I don't hire people who fall apart," he said. "I hire people who keep going." She accepted the contract. The 6 weeks that followed were the busiest of Adiaze's life. She was on the phone before 6 every morning, and still answering messages at midnight. She coordinated 12 vendors, sourced fabric from 3 different states, managed a color scheme that the mother of the bride changed twice, and handled every crisis that arose, and there were many, with the same quiet efficiency she brought to everything she did. Okafor was around more than she expected. He was not the kind of wealthy man who handed money to people and then disappeared. He checked in, asked detailed questions, sat across from her at the planning table, and listened when she spoke with the attention of someone who was actually hearing the words and not just waiting for his turn to respond. She was not used to being listened to like that. She was careful not to let it show. They ate together often, but always late, after the planning ran long. Jollof rice from the place down the road. Pepper soup when the evening turned cold. He was quieter than she expected. He asked her questions about herself that were not the usual questions men asked, not "Where are you from and what are your plans?" but "What made you choose this work, and what do you want, that you haven't been able to get yet?" She answered honestly, which surprised her. "I want my own building," she told him one night, over pepper soup, at 11:15. "Not a rented stall. A proper building, with my name on the sign outside, where I train young girls who come from the kind of places I came from." He nodded slowly. "Why haven't you done it yet?" "Money," she said, simply. "The honest answer is money." He said nothing, but she noticed that he wrote something in the small notebook he always carried. She told herself it meant nothing. She was, again, not quite sure she believed herself. The night before the wedding, the venue was finally set, the vendors were briefed, and the color scheme was, for the third and final time, approved. Adiaze was doing one last walkthrough of the hall when Okafor fell into step beside her. They walked in silence for a moment. Then he said, "What are you doing after this contract ends?" "Building something," she said. "With who?" She stopped walking, turned to look at him. "With myself," she said, "same as I've always done." He looked at her steadily. "I want to back your expansion, full financing, proper terms, documented, no pressure. But I also want to take you to dinner, a real dinner, not pepper soup at midnight." She waited. "Those are 2 separate offers," he said. "You can say yes to one and no to the other. Or yes to both. Or no to both. I don't mix business with the other thing, unless the person I'm asking agrees that it's worth mixing." She looked at him for a long time. "That is not how men usually do it," she said. "I'm not most men," he said, quietly, without arrogance, like a fact. The hall was very still around them. Yes to both, she said. The wedding was extraordinary. 300 people. 5 color schemes woven together without clashing. Fabric that moved when the women danced. The mother of the bride cried, not because she was emotional, but because the hall was so beautiful it caught her off guard. Okafor's sister pulled Adayeze aside at the end of the night and held both her hands and said, "This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for my family." Adayeze drove home at 2 in the morning, sat in her car outside her apartment building, and permitted herself exactly 20 minutes. This time she did not cry. She simply sat with the feeling of something large and good settling into place. The feeling of a woman arriving somewhere she had been working toward for a very long time. Then she went upstairs, slept for 5 hours, and went back to work. She did not plan what happened at Daniel's engagement party. It was not planned. It was simply what occurred when you keep working while others are laughing at you. The event was held at a rooftop venue in Maitama, one of those Abuja locations where the view of the city at night makes people feel important. Daniel and Chidinma's engagement party, the social event of the season. Adayeze was invited because Okafor was invited, and she was arriving with him, which was itself a statement, though she did not think of it that way. She wore deep green, her own fabric, cut by a woman she had trained herself. They arrived together, which in certain Abuja circles meant something. She saw Daniel before he saw her. He was in the middle of a group of people, laughing, holding a glass of juice, comfortable in the way men become comfortable when they believe the story they are telling about themselves. Chidinma was beside him, lovely, and at ease, wearing a ring that caught the light every time she moved her hand. Then Daniel turned, and saw Adayeze, and saw who was standing beside her. She watched his face go through several things in very quick succession. Recognition, confusion, a rapid recalculation of something he thought he understood. A specific, particular discomfort that no one else in the room could see, but that she could read very clearly, because she had once spent 2 years learning every expression on that face. He came over, he had to. Social pressure demanded it. Adayeze, wow. You look, I didn't know you'd be here. Emmanuel invited me, she said. Okafor extended his hand. Emmanuel Okafor, you know Adayeze? Yes, old friends, Daniel said. Adayeze said nothing. She did not correct him. She did not need to. Chidinma's father, who had appeared at Okafor's other shoulder, was already pulling him into a separate conversation about something important, and Adayeze let herself drift into the room, let the evening carry her, spoke to people, accepted a glass of water, watched the city lights from the edge of the rooftop. She was standing there, alone and entirely at peace, when Okafor found her. He stood beside her, looking out at the same view. He looked at you earlier, like a man who made a mistake he only just understood, he said. Yes, she said. Does that feel good? She thought about it honestly. It feels like nothing, she said, which is better than I expected. He nodded. Then, in a voice calibrated so that only she could hear it, but placed so that the people nearby would catch the shape of it if they were listening, he said, I told my sister last week that the woman who made her wedding the most beautiful night of her life is the same woman I intend to spend mine with. I meant it. I thought you should hear it clearly. She turned to look at him. He was looking at the city, not performing for anyone, not watching Daniel, not staging anything, just saying a true thing. You didn't have to say that here, she said quietly. I know, he said, but I wanted to say it where you were standing, so you would hear it in a place you deserved to hear it. In the car afterward, the city scrolling past the window, she asked, was that speech for me or for the room? He glanced over. Does it matter? She considered it. No, she said. I suppose it doesn't. She looked out the window. Her name was going up on a new building sign on Monday. Her name, her fabric, her building, her future. Built by herself, from nothing. One 20-minute cry at a time. She had not needed saving. She had never needed saving. But being chosen, fully, publicly, by a man who had first seen her working quietly in the dark and decided that was exactly the kind of woman worth choosing. That was something different. That, she decided, she could accept. She leaned back in her seat. Outside, Abuja kept moving. She was not afraid of what came next. She never had been.